Hi everyone, I am Angela. Today, I am going to share about the Primary 1 registration process and its impact on the property prices in Singapore. Without further ado, let's start. Most of us will agree that education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. All parents focused heavily on education and wish to give their child a head start by choosing a good primary school. There are 7 phases in the Primary 1 registration process in Singapore, namely Phase 1, Phase 2A1, Phase 2A2, Phase 2B, Phase 2C, Phase 2C Supplementary and Phase 3. The various phases determine the probability of getting into your school of choice. Child are given the highest priority if they can get into Phase 1 and the lowest priority are allocated to child within Phase 3. I will go into criteria for each of the phases in the next few minutes. This is a summary of eligibility criteria for each phase. Please note that Phase 1 to Phase 2C Supplementary is applicable to an eligible child who is a Singapore citizen or Singapore permanent resident. All registration in Phase 1 will be guaranteed places in schools. Balloting may be required from Phase 2A1 to Phase 2C Supplementary. It is important to note that there are a minimum of 20 places allocated to Phase 2B and Phase 2C. We will discuss more about the balloting process in the next few slides. Phase 3 is open to all international students. Let's go through the eligibility criteria for each phases in greater detail. Phase 1 is for a child who has a sibling studying in the primary school of choice. All children that meet this criteria are guaranteed a place in the school. There are 2 groups that will fulfill the requirements of Phase 2A1. Group 1 is for a child whose parent is a former student of the primary school and who has joined the Alumni Association as a member before the 1st of July 2019. Group 2 is for a child whose parent is a member of the School Advisory or Management Committee. The flowchart will assist you in determining if your child met the eligibility criteria for Phase 2A1. This phase may be subjected to balloting if the applications exceeds to the allocated places. There are 3 groups that will fulfill the requirements of Phase 2A2. Group 1 is for a child whose parent or sibling has studied in the primary school of choice. Group 2 is for a child whose parent is a staff member of the primary school of choice. Group 3 is for a child from the Mo Kindergarten under the purview of and located within the primary school of choice. The flowchart will assist you in determining if your child met the eligibility criteria for Phase 2A2. This phase may be subjected to balloting if the applications exceeds to the allocated places. Phase 2B and Phase 2C are the highly contested phases in Singapore. Parents will try to fulfill the criteria in these 2 phases. Therefore, a minimum of 20 places are allocated to these 2 phases. In Phase 2B, there are 3 groups which are eligible in this phase. Group 1 is for a child whose parent has joined the primary school as a parent volunteer not later than the 1st of July 2019 and has given at least 40 hours of voluntary service to the school by the 30th of June 2020. Group 2 is for a child whose parent is a member endorsed by the church or clan directly connected with the primary school. Group 3 is for a child whose parent is endorsed as an active community leader. The flowchart will assist you in determining if your child met the eligibility criteria for Phase 2B. This phase may be subjected to balloting if the applications exceeds to the allocated places. Phase 2C is also a highly contested phase as this phase is for all children who are eligible for Primary 1 in the following year and are not yet registered in a primary school. The flowchart will assist you in determining if your child met the eligibility criteria for Phase 2C. This phase may be subjected to balloting if the applications exceeds to the allocated places. There is a minimum of 20 places allocated for this phase. Phase 2C Supplementary is for a child who is not yet registered in a primary school after Phase 2C. The flowchart will assist you in determining if your child met the eligibility criteria for Phase 2C Supplementary. This phase may be subjected to balloting if the applications exceeds to the allocated places. For Phase 3, it is open to all international students. Registration in Phase 3 will be on a first-come first-served basis if there are remaining places in the primary schools. As discussed earlier, if the number of application exceed the vacancies from Phase 2A1 to Phase 2C supplementary, balloting is required. Balloting within each phase is based on above grouping. Group 1 has the highest priority, which are for citizens living within 1 kilometer from the school, and Group 6 has the lowest priority where Singapore permanent residents are living beyond 2 kilometers from the schools. In view of the priority criteria set, parents would want to live closer to the primary school of their choice. This in turn drive up property prices within 1 kilometer of good school. Investment in these properties generally go up in value. Rental for these properties are also highly sought after. So which address can be used for registration? There are various addresses accepted. Firstly, you can use your current address. Or, for parents looking to buy a new property within 1 kilometer of the school of their choice, they can submit the new property address by providing a copy of the original sales and purchase agreement for the private property. Note that the vacant possession date of the new property must be within 2 years of your child's entry to P1. For example, for entry on the 2nd of January 2021, the vacant possession date cannot be later than the 1st of January 2023. Parents can also purchase a resale property and submit that address by providing the exercised option to purchase and buyer's stamp duty certificate for private resale property. Lastly, caregiver address can be used by declaring alternative child care arrangement. Dates for 2020 P1 registration exercise has not been released yet. We will provide an update once it is available. Please subscribe, like or follow our channel to be kept updated.